as they approached the shooting sports deck, they found Chad Littlefield shot 4 times in the back, 1 time in the hand, once in the face, once on the top of the head. And they found Chris Kyle shot 5 times in the back and side, 1 time inside of the head.
That is District Attorney Alan Nash delivering opening statements in the murder trial of the alleged assailant who supposedly took the lives of both Chad Littlefield and the man we know now as the American Sniper, Chris Kyle. We welcome you back to America's Forum. Let's talk about the proceedings yesterday in Texas, and to do so, we call on a criminal defense attorney who Skypes in from Boston, as is his wont. He is Geoffrey Nathan, and to make this a bi-coastal affair, continuing in co-hosting duties this hour from Newsmax LA, Larry Elder. Let's begin, Geoffrey, with the notion of the courtroom coverage. Judge Jason Cashin ruled that only 1 video camera would be allowed there. And while we hear the motions from the attorneys, no audio access for us to hear from the witnesses, even though we can see the pictures. Should the judge have authorized use of the audio from the witnesses, or does the judge have absolute authority in that courtroom to handle it as he pleases?
The judge has exclusive control over his courtroom in any jurisdiction. Although cameras are permitted, the instance that happened here is the opening statements were televised, recorded for a national audience. However, the crux of the issue here is that opening statements are not evidence, and there's a specific instruction that the judge gives to a jury in any state or federal courtroom that says you can listen to this and take it as a roadmap for what the attorneys think is going to be the evidence in this case, but it's not evidence. Evidence is only from the witness stand. So I think that what happened here was the right move from this judge to keep the circus environment from just getting out of hand in this matter.
Geoffrey, apparently the defense is going to be insanity. That's a pretty tough putt, isn't it?
Hey, let me tell you, in Texas, it's even harder because Texas has sort of a triple prong, I call it. They use the McNaughton test plus the irresistible impulse test. So the burden of proof being on the defendant is a hurdle in that jurisdiction that's extremely difficult to get through.
Geoffrey, you mentioned the decision in the courtroom to go ahead and let us hear the opening remarks. You also mentioned that that cannot really be a part of the evidence, but it is worth noting that we likewise have the opening remarks from defense counsel Tim Moore, so let's listen to a portion of that.
When he took their lives, he was in the grip of a psychosis. A psychosis so severe at that point in time that he did not know what he was doing was wrong.
So, Geoffrey, there is Tim Moore talking about his client being in the grip of a, quote, psychosis. Now, you just talked about the standards in Texas for an insanity defense. Did that opening statement give us an effective sneak preview?
I think the attorney did a spectacular job in this instance to articulate the prongs, because the prongs are so difficult for the jury to understand, and it takes a judge to then, at the close of the case, to go through what the law is. That's the job of the judge, and the attorney in this case really did it very well out. He laid it out very well. He wasn't using cheat sheet, which in this instance, sometimes when you get a really complex jury instruction, you're inclined to just read the instruction to the jury, and that's not what the jury wants, because the jurors want to connect with their attorney. And I think the lawyer did a great job in this instance.
Geoffrey, let's assume that the unlikely thing happens and this defense is successful. What does that say about soldiers coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq who apply for jobs, who try to get involved in relationships? Isn't this going to make the stigma even that much greater?
Well, the stigma of PTSD is enormous for our soldiers because the people don't quite grasp what they're going through. It's not that they're cuckoo or crazy or both. It's that the war, the combat environment in which they were subjected to has left them with a mental disease or defect. And that mental disease or defect can be treated provided it's not combined with the use of illicit drugs, which in this case, what we're going to see is that's exactly what happened. This defendant came back with PTSD plus drugs. I mean, at that point, you're all wacko and you're subject to doing criminal acts.
Well, let's take it a step further because, Geoffrey, according to the Washington Post, the military record of Mr. Routh, quote, doesn't show that he was ever engaged in direct combat. So the question becomes, can the defense of PTSD be effective for one who has not been involved in combat?
Well, I mean, at that point, you're going to have to say, look, they're doing a wonderful job to devise and implement a theory of defense, which is what we have to do when we're handed an almost impossible task. And here you have the almost impossible task. I mean, how do you get this guy acquitted? The answer is you can't. And so what you do is you devise a lawful theory of defense, you throw it at the jury, you hope that it sticks, and if it does, you're a hero, and if it doesn't, you did your job. That's all you can do.
What the defense, Geoffrey, of course, has to prove is that the defendant did not appreciate the rightfulness or wrongfulness of his action at the time. How do you do that? What expert do you go to for that?
Got about a minute to answer, Geoffrey.
Sure. Well, you go to sociologists in combat climate and you review your case with your expert sociologist, and the sociologist will come back and say, well, this soldier was operating in what's called a toxic command climate, and that's how you devise your theory of defense, and then you put it to the jury, and you cross your fingers and hope that it works.
Right.
Geoffrey Nathan, we always appreciate your candor, born of experience in the courtroom, and we should note for all of those watching us today, if you want to find out more about our guest, Geoffrey Nathan, you can go to his website, very eponymously named Geoffrey with a G. You see his name right here, GeoffreyGNathan.com. And this reminder that you can read the whole story. The story, in the words of the man Chris Kyle, the most lethal sniper in U.S. history. The book American Sniper available by going to newsmax.com/sniper. Now, when we come back, we'll bring in our political panel. But right now, we'll step aside for this Newsmax Now update.